Performance, so you can just do a quick check on it. There it is. I've already set my converter off to Circle D. They're going to lower the stall on it and maybe put a mechanical diode in it just so it doesn't heat as much on the street, but we'll see why this thing's running so hot. Hopefully not draw the transmission, but I'm going to have somebody else look at it as an expert. Hey, what's up YouTube? So today is September 26th, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. UPS just dropped off my converter from Circle D. So here it is back. And what they did, they went in, they tightened it up a little bit. I was seeing well over 4,400, 4,500 RPM on the flash. And they tightened that up, but they also put what we call a diode in there. And for a street-driven car, a lot of times they'll recommend a diode, or maybe an old school way of doing stuff. Sure, light and blind you. They did a diode, and it would actually help for the converter not to slip as much on the street. And so I had them add a diode to mine and tighten up a little bit. So we'll see when I get the transmission back from Jason over at Wicked Performance. He found a few things he didn't like in the transmission, so he's changing some parts in it for me, not only to make it more robust, but to just handle the horsepower that the car's got. Apparently what I bought didn't quite have the good parts that it's supposed to have in it, but you know what? It doesn't matter. At this point, we're just going to fix it. Jason seems to be the man when it comes to this. He's the one that told me to get the diode added to my converter. That's what he uses in his cars that he turns out, and they don't have a problem driving on the street. So I'll wait to hear from Jason. Should get my transmission back soon. I'll get the converter popped in there, and then we'll get the old TTSaleen back together, and hopefully this will be it. This will be a transmission that's rock solid and a converter that matches, and I can drive it around and not heat up the fluid and bowl it out, which is basically what was happening. So stay tuned. Hopefully these new microphones giving you some good audio, and we'll talk to you later. The Turbo 400 is back. All right, so I've got the transmission back in. I've already cranked it, got the fluid where I need to be. It's at the middle way, a little under for the hash marks when it's at temperature, which is about 125 degrees sitting here running. I ran it for like 15 minutes and it's running nice and cool now. But cycled through all the gears multiple times, kept checking the fluid level, adding a little bit at the time. And now it's, like I say, where I want it in hash marks. So what I got to do now is I had a little leak. I don't know if it's one of my lines or something. I just cleaned it off. I got to find where that leak is because it's more of an annoyance than anything. And then I've hooked my pressure gauge up. So what I'm going to do now is check the pressures in it when we put it in gear. Just something we like to check. So I've got it here. Unfortunately, the cord won't go all the way up into the car. So we'll be able to obtain some pressures here looking at this. Looks like in neutral, we're a little over 200 pounds. We'll go reverse. And reverse, we're right at a little over 200 pounds. First gear, let's rev it up. everything looks great. So back from a successful test drive, just want to give a shout out to Jason at Wicked Performance. He did a great job getting the transmission set up properly. So now it has the best parts in it. It doesn't run hot. I went out and did a quick pull on it, as you saw in the video, and two-step did it $4,000, let off, and it seemed to go ahead and actually pull down the car, where before to convert it seemed like it was too loose and it would just blow the tires off. So I was only like half, three-quarter throttle anyway, and then I had to modulate it just so it didn't kill the tires, but it actually rolled out pretty good. I mean, I got way up the drive, wide open throttle, so came back, no leaks, no fluid blowing out. Checked my catch can, no fluid was in it, and no leaks under here. Just give you a quick look at everything. And don't mind my little turn downs here. I had to get creative because the way my X pipe was made years ago, this side is a little bit lower than that side because I changed transmissions and that was the fix. So I've got these little turnouts here, and I had to modify it because this one actually points straight down, this one's pointing out. So did a little tweak here and drove it around, and you could hear it in the video. This clamp was actually scrubbing a little bit, so I turned it, yeah, right here. So I turned it and twisted it up so it wouldn't be so low, but it was scraping just a little bit after the test drive. But overall, the car's fixed, runs great, and the temperature never got over like 165, 170. So I'm really happy with everything. I want to take time to thank Jason again at Wicked Performance. He set me straight on, he figured it was just getting too hot, the converter was slipping. And when he went in, he even found in my pump, it didn't have the jet in it. It wasn't, whatever the proper term is, he calls it jet, but he drills out and puts this insert in there so it keeps the pressures at bay, so it's not too much charge pressure. And then I check my pressures, everything else, so it's working perfect. So if you need a transmission fix, call Jason at Wicked Performance. He's in Raleigh, North Carolina, and he'll help you out. All right, just want to do a lessons learned here before I close out this video. So a few things. I bought this transmission. It was Transmission Specialties through Jigs. It's supposed to be a 300M shafted race version, special case, blah 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 blah, for about $5,000. And after inspecting this thing, taking it apart, it didn't have 300M shafts in it. It had stock shafts. I can prove it because the shafts that came out, Jason had some stock ones. We looked at them, they're identical. By comparison, his 300M shafts that we put in from Cohen have a different look to them and even a different color to them. They're like a gold tint to it. But either way, it's got 300M shafts in it now. Next thing was, Jason found that the pump didn't have the restrictor in it, the jet he calls it, and that keeps the pressure down going to the converter from the pump. And being a trans brake car, that should have had that. And didn't have it. And again, you would think building race transmissions, TSI, Jags, whoever, they would have done that, and they didn't. That could have contributed to some of my problem. And then finally, when I ordered my Circle D converter, I guess I didn't specify how much I drive this car on the street versus at the track. And they gave me a converter that was Billy Badass. It should be fine. And they said they have guys who drag and drive, but when I told them what I'm trying to do, they put a diode in it. And I don't really know how that works in a converter. I know how a diode works in a circuit for electrical, but not in a converter. But either way, and I had them tighten it up. So it was going over 4,500 flash speed, and now it seems to be, right at $4,000. While I have trans brake, it starts to pull the car down. So I think just tweaking the converter, putting the diode in it, getting the pump fixed, putting that restrictor in it like it should have had to begin with, and then having the right parts in it, the heavy duty parts that I won't break. So now I feel like lessons learned. If I do it all over again, I would just go to a local transmission builder like Jason at Wigger Performance, and I'd say, look, man, build me a Turbo 400, and that's what I'd end up with. I wouldn't have any issues that I'm having now. And gone through chasing my tail on the cooler, the lines, the pumps, and all this stuff. The fluid levels being too high or too low, all ridiculous, all crap. Because I set the level like what I used to have, halfway on the hash marks with the temperature, and it's perfectly fine. Drove it, didn't blow any fluid out, level's still the same, shifts like a champ, runs great. So lesson learned for me. So I figure I'll pass it along. Sometimes people hide what they have and mistakes they do, and other times they don't. I'll tell you a big mistake I made. Also, Jason had to fix. I took a grinder to my case so I could make the original Ultra Bell fit, which bolts to the pump, because it wouldn't sit down in there. Because that's what TSI told me to do. They told me to grind the lip off to get this thing to fit. And since I didn't have a way to, machine it, didn't have a local machiner, or didn't know anybody at the time, I took a grinder to it. Now, I had it, according to Jason, 0.050 of an inch from being correct, but that 0.050 can make a difference how the bell housing sits. I since went to a bolt-on reed Ultra Bell type of setup, which bolts to the case itself, not to the pump. But Jason told me when he went to put the pump and all in, it just wasn't sitting exactly flat. So he had to machine the case and machine my bell. And when he did that, it actually pushed the transmission closer to the motor. So when I put it all in to get my 3/16 clearance on the converter, I had to space the transmission out a fraction, So anyway, it's all this stuff, lessons learned. But at this point, it is ready to go. I'm happy that Billy Barnhouse, a good friend of mine, I've known him since high school when I was a kid. He turned me on to Jason. Jason is a master at his craft. He knew exactly what to do. He's the one that told me my converter might be causing the problem and be too loose or something with the converter side of it, and he was absolutely right. And he also found parts that weren't really what I'd paid for originally in the transmission, and we fixed it. And that billet pump I put in there, that's gone. That thing already had wear in it, and it could have been where it wasn't sitting flush, but we took the original pump that I had, he went through it, he fixed it, put it in, and it's absolutely perfect. The fluid pressures at idle, neutral, and all those are over 200 pounds, like 220, 210, 220. And at 2,000 RPM, they're about 240. And they all hold steady. Neutral, first, second drive, reverse. It does great. So, lessons learned. Hope that helps. Talk to you soon.